Me and my two idiot buddies were in second year high school at the age of 15, and we started doing houses just to get money for chocolate and dodge 'em car rides at the carnival and stuff like that. And eventually we got busted, and we acted tough until a detective threatens to bash our smart-ass faces with an army belt that had mother written on it. And he said, "Tougher kids than yous have shit their pants," when I showed him this. And we were photographed and fingerprinted and taken to a child welfare building and handed over to an old dame called Matron. I was locked in a cell with a rubber mattress, a rubber toilet bucket, and a light bulb controlled from outside. A wire grill protected the globe. I wrapped myself in a blanket and lay feeling sorry that my grandmother would be told and she'd feel sad. Being locked up wasn't a big deal. I'd seen Hollywood movies of the 50s that taught me everything about jail. Mumbling out the side of my mouth and talking like a tough guy was something I'd be good at. Graffiti on the cell wall showed names of previous tenants, sad attempts to be remembered. Back in 59, cops, teachers, parents, neighbours could slap you for breaking rules. Every morning at 8, adults and juveniles arrested the previous day were lined up and inspected. A luckless crim arrested for drunk could be identified for a past job, and a floodlight was aimed at us and names and charges were read out. And a cop watched each guy so he'd try and remember him in case he saw him in the future. But I was escorted to juvenile court and sat waiting for Mr. Scales, the magistrate. And a kid next to me muttered, "Dandruff Scales." And I heard later my pals must have had lawyers, because one of them was remanded on bail and sent home until they got a report on his home life. And my other mate smirked as he left to show he didn't care. And I went into court last. My grandparents had come by bus to explain how bad company had led me astray, and they lied about how good I was doing at school and told about my mother dying and dad living elsewhere. And the judge lectured me. He said, "The child welfare will investigate your environment and bring me a written report in 21 days. And I smiled inwardly and I thought, I'm going to get a good behaviour bond, nothing else. As soon as I get home, I'll go where I've hid me loot, buy a lovely lime milkshake and a block of chocolate, and go to Glenelg Carnival and ride to dodge 'em cars." But then he said, "While I await that information, this being your first offence, you'll be remanded in custody to Magill Boys Training School for 21 days. If I had a mind, it would have screamed, but I never got one until 1967. I tried to send my grandparents a look that said, "Cheer up, I'm not the weakling you think I am. I'll be okay." But I don't think they got the message. Cops drove me to Magill in a cop car, and I felt proud when the car stopped at traffic lights and people saw me in a cop car. They might think me a dashing professional criminal. And I thought of jumping out and running, but cops had guns. And trying to relax me nerves, I thought, incarceration I can handle. That's nothing. But kids will tease me. Maybe I'll have to fight. I must act brave. Far too quickly, the ride ended outside a large, gloomy old Victorian-era stone building where I was marched to the superintendent's office. The craggy-faced old guy looked like Victor McLachlan in the Quiet Man movie. He had a fight with John Wayne in that movie, if you look it up. And he said, "Stand at attention with hands at side. Address all officers as sir, and obey commands immediately. Do you understand?" And I gave him a Richard Widmark snide sneer and said, "Yeah." Bang! The room exploded and me head filled with stars and me face stung. He must have slapped me, because if he'd punched me, I'd be on the floor trying to get up. And he said, I told you address officers, sir, if you think this is a place to act like the hooligan you seem to be, you'll find your stay very unpleasant. Understand? Yes, sir, I snapped. Dismissed. A screw marched me to a storeroom where I was issued brown, itchy woolens trousers, an itchy short-sleeved shirt, heavy leather boots, and no socks. I was about to ask about the socks, but remembering that slap, I thought better of it. Next came a large rectangular yard enclosed by a 7-foot-high wire fence with barbed wire on top. The sun was going down, and 30 teenagers stood around in slovenly postures. Slowly a dozen made their way over. I strategically positioned me back against the fence. One sneered. "What you in for?" I told him. "How long you got?" I told him. They tried getting me riled up by the traditional means of all institutions, ridicule. They said, "Let's see your muscles. What are you looking at, you piss-weak shit-ass? Geez, you're a weak bastard, I could beat you. Hey, you're going to give me your sweets at tea time, aren't you? You better, or I'll knock your block off." And I wish one of those nice guards had come by. None did, so I was resigned to getting bashed to death. And then a bell rang and the crowd lined up outside a door. And they pushed and shoved and punched and tripped and snarled until an officer appeared and they lined up like soldiers. The joint was like a prisoner of war camp. At dinner we sat in tables of 4 and waited until told to eat. And a kid next to me said, "Don't touch that bread before the screw says. You'll get in trouble if you do." Everyone was staring down at the bread on their bread plate, and never had I seen such expressions of yearning. We sat for 5 minutes, then trustees gave out plates of the smallest hot meal, less than you'd get at the worst soup kitchen. Everyone guarded their plate like it was gold. Big kids stole bits from little kids, and middle-sized kids stole from other kids. And the bloke who said he'd take my sweets was sitting opposite me. We eyed each other, but I lowered my gaze, and I was trying to blend in and become anonymous. So I ate with gusto, thinking it'd make me look less of a wimp. And the tough kid snuck into the chair next to me and said, "That's mine, remember?" And he reached out to take my sweets. So I stabbed my fork down hard on his arm. And he jerked it away, saying, "Fucking hell." So I grabbed my sweet plate and scurried to another table and eaten the cake that I didn't even like. I thought, "Oh, fuck, he'll kill me if he gets me in a fair fight." But I'd rather get a beating than be thought weak. I understood the image you give on the first day can stick. And lucky for me, though I kept worrying about his revenge, he never talked to me again. All right, that's enough for now. It gets better later on.